You're listening to the Social Selling Simplified podcast. Stick around if you too are obsessed with learning things that actually work and believe that success leaves clues. We're all about identifying results-producing roadmaps and getting super clear on how to scale and grow your online business. From part-timer to president, social selling expert Ashley Shaw will help you connect the dots and take the guesswork out of what works to grow a social selling empire. It's time to hear from social selling legends, listen in on truthful conversations, and learn the best tips and tricks to reduce the marketing overwhelm so you can build the social selling business of your dreams. If you're ready to go all in, no holding back, and build the business you've always wanted, you're in the right place. Here's your host, educator, social selling guru, and fitness industry OG, Ashley Shaw.
Welcome to Social Selling Simplified. I'm your host, Ashley Shaw, and today I am turning the tables. I have gotten so many requests from people just on how to really dig into your ideal customer and how to really determine what they need to hear, how to solve their problems, and how to just really get clear on the language that you need to use in order to attract them. This episode is for you if you are struggling to get engagement, and ultimately the root cause of that is not understanding who your ideal customer is or what they need to hear. If the answer to who is your ideal customer is moms with kids, you're definitely going to want to listen in on this conversation that I have with my good friend, Nicole Mielke. Nicole and I work together in the fitness industry, and we were, I would say, partners in crime in terms of being divisional managers together and leaned a lot on each other in many different work situations. She was my first roommate ever for my first fitness conference that I attended at Camp Fit Pro. And Nicole is at a point in her life that she is really pivoting. She's deciding what direction that she wants to go in her life and how her purpose can tie into what she does on a daily basis. So sit back and listen in to this deep dive where we go over everything from what does a perfect day look like to how that actually relates back into your ideal customer, their before experience, their after experience, and what the values that you're actually searching for have to do when it comes to defining your ideal customer and actually talking to them. So we're going to dive into connecting life purpose with business purpose, or how to make money doing what you love. So the first question I want to ask you, Nicole, is tell me about your perfect day. So from the moment you wake up, let's talk about what it looks like, where you are, and just walk me through what your schedule or lack of schedule, if that's what you prefer, what would that look like?
Well, I think for me, I'm always someone who gets up fairly early. I enjoy getting my day started. What that looks like for me is getting up and not having that rush. Mm-hmm. So I get up and I can make myself a tea. I can get my workout in and out of the way. I do enjoy getting that sort of starting my day. From there, I think it's being able to spend some time where I am helping or supporting people in some way with adding that value. My perfect day would be to have that time where I'm adding some value to people in my community or family, friend base. Then I think there's got to be a piece for me where I'm doing some form of an education for myself, some kind of development for myself. Because I think all too often that stuff gets missed when we're really busy. And what we end up putting aside is our own development or our own learning, or even if it's just that opportunity to do something that is rewarding for yourself. So again, I get caught up in the always development versus giving myself a break and being able to do something that's just relaxing. And then there's that piece of then being able to cook for my family, to have that time to sit down and enjoy where there's no stress. There's no anxiousness of your job and all the responsibilities that you have in that day that you actually, I would get to spend that quality time when everyone's home.
Okay, cool. So let's talk a little bit more about adding value. Where do you like adding value, into what sort of group or community?
I think where my passion lies the most is where I can help teach leaders how to get the best out of their people. So, off the top of my head, I would look at things like, how do you do really great goal setting with someone? And whether it's a leader or just someone that you work with, or, maybe even a partner that you have in a business, how do you do that really great goal setting so that you help someone reach all, a 10 out of 10 in every area of their life? Then I look at things like, how do you develop competency? So I really enjoy working with people on how they develop their competencies that are important in their environment, their work environment, right? So I think, in terms of culture building, those are areas that I get excited about when you're helping someone learn how to build a culture within their team and doing it so authentically that people believe in them. From there, you can do there's the whole driving sales. I mean, I can sell pretty much anything, and doing it in a very fun way, because as anyone knows, in any kind of sale environment, it's repetitive. And if you don't create a fun way to get the results, you end up losing people, and you're always sort of turning, associates over. So I would say those are probably like that development piece from a leader standpoint and being able to drive a business. If you ask me what areas, obviously I've spent, the last, let's say, I guess 12 or 13 years in a fitness environment, but I've also worked in a lot of other companies where, retail, service, that I think get a lot more value out of those focuses, which wasn't always a strong focus when I was in those environments of leadership development.
And so what do all those things have in common when you think about fitness, retail, and service? What are the underlying values that need to be there for you to want to work with those leaders?
Oh, wow. I think I've always stressed the big values for me. Number one is integrity. When I look at integrity, it isn't just, I think when people think integrity, the first thing they think about is like, you're not going to steal or cheat, from the systems, or you're going to follow the policies. And that's really important. But the other part of integrity for me that I've always sort of tried my best to follow is that when you say something, you follow through on it. Right? Like that's the other piece of integrity is if I'm going to say I'm going to do something, if I'm going to accomplish something, if I'm going to give to people when I said I was going to give to them, whether it be my time, my knowledge, my support, that you got to follow through on that. Your word is all you really have. And that's one thing that you don't ever want to break. So for integrity, for me, it encompasses all of those things. Trust is so crucial for me, always has been, that I really need to be able to trust the people I'm surrounding myself with. And for me, you get my trust from day one. This is not, to me, I don't believe you have to earn it. You just can lose it, right? But everyone should be on that same playing field, that if we're going to work together, we have this trust rate from day one. And the other part of the biggest piece there as well is caring. So, and truly caring about people, and not just caring about people because they can help you get something. Because I've been in that environment where, you feel cared for until all of a sudden you really need something from someone. And then because it's not a work related thing, or because it's not generating revenue or something for somebody else, then that care sort of falters. Whereas for me, it's how do I care about the people, or have people that I care about, and how do I help them in any capacity of their life so that they could be the best version of themselves in every aspect of their life.
Okay, perfect. And so I'm going to call them your ideal customer, the person that is in charge of teaching leaders how to get the best out of their people. Like they are the person on the other side that wants this service. What does it look like when they are living integrity?
So that for that ideal customer for me?
Yeah, if you're to think of, so there's going to be an ideal customer out there that wants to teach their leaders to make sure that they're getting the best out of them, right? That's ultimately going to be their goal. And you just happen to be the solution to teach them that. So thinking about that person, that business owner that you're going to want to work with, when we hear the word integrity, and they live by integrity, what's a way that it sort of manifests itself in their business? That when you're looking at their business, you would be able to see, yep, this business operates with integrity. Therefore, this is an ideal client I would want to work with. So what do you need to see to know a business operates with integrity?
Well, there's a couple of things. And I think to start off is, what is that company's vision or goal, mission statement? I don't, every company has their own verbiage of what they use, but whatever they stand for, does it represent in the company? So do the associates or employees of this company, can they speak to what that vision looks like? Do they understand it? And do they feel supported by it? It's one thing to have your own plan or vision or goal, but if you haven't executed or communicated it to your people, if they're not living by it, then there's a gap. And the other piece of that is, does the owner or executive leaders live the same vision or statement? Okay, because I've worked for places where, and I left a company years ago, that you'd have to go in there and you're evaluating all of the employees on these focus and vision. And then I was watching, as part of the executive team, I was also watching executive leaders who were not abiding by it, and we weren't held to that same level of accountability. And I always thought, there's a huge gap. Like, that's not a fair, integral way of running your business. We all have to live by it, and we all have to know it and understand it. And so that's where that, integrity of what my word is. And does that go to the customer as well? Whoever the customer is, can I see that shine through that way as well? Because you do have to take care of your people, but you have to take care of your customer.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I think for me, I would want to see that translated to be able to understand that their true vision is supported by the executives or whoever that capacity of executives are, and to the employees and to the customer.
Okay. And what about trust? How does that manifest itself?
Well, I think it's, being able to watch where there is, so I call it very high touch. So there's a difference between micromanaging and high touch. And I think when people start to get fearful, they do the micromanaging piece. And people do still lead by that. So for me, an example of a trust would be to be able to watch a leader be able to stand back and watch their team be successful, and to give them the ability to do what they need to do to get the results, and being there from a high touch perspective where it's, if you're a top performer, I'm still there to support you, because top performers get lost in the mix. If you're struggling, I don't just cut my ties with you, but I'm there to support you and determine what the gaps are to help fix it. So for me, I think it's a very important piece of knowing that there is a level of trust. And when you hear things like, let me tell you what, this associate did, or let me tell you what this person has brought into the company. So when you start to hear someone talk about the talent on their team and the value on their team as to why they're successful, that to me does show a level of trust.
Okay, perfect. And lastly, caring.
Yeah, caring, you can't fake it.
Mm-hmm.
You really can't. You can pretend or think that you're coming across in a caring way. But for me, it's, what are you doing for your people in all aspects of their career? And again, not just doing things because I turn a profit from it. So perfect example would be goal setting. Do you really care about what's important to the person in front of you from every aspect? Not just how much money do you want to make and how much, where do you want to be in 5 years, or what are you going to do to invest in your development? That's great. But how do we make sure this person is living a well-balanced life? So what things are being offered, and not that every company can afford to go and offer all of these great programs and incentives to develop people, but you can still be there from a very caring perspective and knowing what's important to your people. So can this leader tell me, the people on their team, what they're working towards, what maybe something personal about them, or what they're achieving, and how they're helping?
And so let me know if this makes sense. If the company is able to do these things we've just talked about, like live with integrity, trust, and caring, what is the end result to their bottom line if they can do that, if you were going to make that connection for them?
Well, if they're doing all of those things, you're going to have very happy employees. You're going to have very happy customers. And that becomes that repeat business. And then you have people who are invested. If I was to think about the best place that I had been in, mentally and physically, emotionally, where I was working in an environment, I gave it everything I had. And I don't just mean that I worked 70 hours a week and never took time off and didn't have a life, but I was invested. I was the best advocate. I was the promoter of that business, any opportunity that I could. And if you have a bunch of people that work in that environment who are so proud and so excited and passionate about what they're doing, then that's just going to keep growing the business and growing that reputation of having a place or being a part of a place that people want to work. And that's the other part of it. People will want to be there. You're going to be sought out as a desirable work environment. You're going to have customers who want to be a part of that from a shopping experience, whatever that shopping looks like, whatever your customer is looking for. We're smart shoppers now than years ago. So we won't just necessarily go to the place that's the cheapest for whatever you're looking for. There is some buy-in of wanting to support a business that cares about their people, cares about their customer, cares about their environment, whatever that case may be. So you create those environments and you create or live by those, 3 values. And they're not the only important values. But I truly believe that sets a great foundation and can build a strong company or build a strong business.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay. And what happens if let's just say, so that's the after. What is happening for these business owners or your ideal customer, the before experience? It's not that they haven't been living by the values. It's like they probably know that they're important, but they're not sure how to get the best out of their people yet. So What does that before experience look like for them? What would be some of the things they would be experiencing to know that they need to be teaching their leaders how to get the best out of their people?
Well, I think you're going to maybe have a little bit of what they call the New York skyline in sales. You're probably not going to have sort of some consistency maybe with certain people. You're probably going to have this mixed emotion where, your people may feel, let's say, I feel that my leader supports me, but I'm not 100% sure, or, I think in this scenario, like there's just that uncertainty because it's not very clear. So they're probably going to say things like, I think my manager, my leader would be okay with that, but I haven't really asked. So it's not necessarily negative. They're not saying, oh, my leader wouldn't do this or they're horrible. They're just kind of in that unknown place. And when you're in that sort of, I'm not sure, then you're not getting the promoters. So they're not necessarily detractors, but they're not promoters yet. They're kind of in that place where I don't mind going in, clocking in and clocking out. Right? So you're going to see sort of maybe that up and down from a sales perspective, or not having that same consistency. There might not be full transparency in conversations because maybe that trust isn't fully there. So I'm scared to give you a wrong idea. I'm scared that what I say isn't going to meet the value of who's at the table. Like there just is sort of that same confidence level, because I haven't quite got that trust that when I put my hand up in this room and share something, that it's going to be received well, right? Or that, there's just that safety of being able to say, hey, maybe my idea that I'm about to say is not a good idea, and that's all right, but I want the safe room to be able to do it. And again, so it's not a bad thing. It's not like, well, when I go into this environment and I say something, I'm shut down. You're just in that middle place where you're just not yet, you're not a detractor, but you're not a promoter yet.
Okay. And so if we have the before picture of this business owner that you want to help, we have the after. We know when they implement certain things, this is what they get to on the other side. So if we were to come up with a statement, when you do this, it results in this for your business. What do you think that solution is that you offer entrepreneurs, if that makes sense? What are you teaching their people that then helps them get this result?
So if you're wanting me to distill it down to like specific.
Well, I'm basically what we're doing is like, so what we've done so far, let's just do a quick recap here for everyone. What we've done so far is we're building your value on what you love to do on a daily basis and the things that you like to talk about and the areas you feel that you add value. So ideally, those things you've talked about, like teaching leaders how to get the best out of their people, goal setting, culture building within a team, all those in a business plan, online business plan, will become touch points and like the heartbeat of what you are able to share and put out there, because business owners that are interested in achieving that end result you've talked about will be interested in hearing about how they can do that. That's in little snippets, right?
Yeah.
And so the reason that we want to get specific on the values that, those industries specifically, we talked about fitness, retail, and services. There's a thread that kind of links all those, why you want to focus on those areas. And ultimately, we've linked that back to the values that you feel are important, so we can qualify right away whether a company is your ideal customer or not based on those values and the direction that they're trying to go, meaning they believe what you believe, that after picture is what they want. And then you gave us the before, which I love, that New York skyline example. It's super visual. They know that they need you if they hear or see those before examples you gave of inconsistency. There's this unknown place and trust not being fully transparent. Sales are up and down. That's how they can identify that you're right for them, and also that you can identify that they're right for you. So that's sort of the before picture. And then what we're doing is saying, well, when you implement A, B, C, and D, you can get to the after, which you identified as a place that, leaders feel truly cared for. They become promoters of the business. They'll do anything for you, like blood, sweat, and tears are poured into the results because they know you have their back. So ultimately, now that we become clear on those things, what we're doing is we have the before picture, we have the after. In the middle of that lies the hypothesis. For example, if I were to look at how I serve fitness entrepreneurs and social sellers, when you take down the marketing overwhelm, you can start to build the authentic business of your dreams. Because I truly believe that overwhelm is the enemy of execution. And if you're stuck on how to get certain tasks done that aren't in your area of strength, it's going to hold you back from doing the things you need to do to build that authentic business and drive sales in the right direction. So ultimately, that's what we're figuring out right now for you is, what is that hypothesis? Is it that when you teach your leaders how to get the best out of their people, this happens, your sales will skyrocket? Or so what do you think that hypothesis is?
If I look at sort of the biggest misses right now that I have seen, and what I focused the most on in this last year with my leaders, was managing and measuring the work. And so where the gaps were is there's not this consistency of success. And, we can do a really great job at creating our plan of attack. So for the most part, all my leaders are really good at saying, this is our outcome. This is the outcome goal I want. Here's all the process goals that we need to do to get there. And maybe not all the process goals are perfect, but for the most part, we can put a plan together. The gaps are in a couple of places. The gaps are in communicating and executing that plan, and making sure that everyone who needs to be part of it really understands how they play a part in that execution and communication. The second gap is that managing and measuring the work. So as a leader, I need to be following that path and not just saying at the end of, let's say if you're on a monthly basis, saying at the end of the month, oh, hey, Ashley, did it work? I need to be measuring and managing it throughout to be able to be agile enough to change the plan, or to guide people through, or to celebrate what behaviors we're seeing. That's the biggest piece when I look at a competency is that managing and measuring work. So if leaders truly know how to execute their plan through their people, then that's what is going to build that sustainability in what they're trying to do. And it sounds really easy, but it isn't, because we either, trust our people too much, or we're not really sure how to manage and measure the work. And that's where I talked earlier about they start doing this managing and measuring by micromanaging, which is not typically the way most people want to be led. And if you have to be micromanaged, you might not be in the right role at the right time.
Right. It like leaves out trust. Like trust
It leaves
is
out the
abandoned
trust.
in the
Absolutely.
process.
So you've either hired the wrong person to be in that role, and it might just be that person's not ready yet for that responsibility. We needed to give them more. And so that piece is what I feel is missing in a lot of environments. So once you master how to manage and measure the work, it builds the confidence level of the people you're working with. It gives them confidence and success, right? Which is what gets us excited, is the more confident you get, the more success you see. You just want to keep repeating the behaviors. But as part of that managing and measuring the work, if we don't acknowledge the behaviors that are right or acknowledge the behaviors that we need to ramp up or fix, then we're never going to get that result from a consistent perspective. You might have that New York skyline again. I had a really good month, I had a bad month, good month, bad month, but it isn't because of the person in front of you. It's because of maybe the customer and their needs and wants. That's how it dictates that sustainability or the consistency that you're currently getting versus being able to say consistently this person is going to achieve. Okay. When you get those people achieving, then obviously your business is going to skyrocket, and it actually is going to allow you to be able to sit back even more from your business and watch it happen because you've put the time into those people.
So what is this process called? Is it managing and measuring the work? Is it something that you've come up with that you would call it the whatever it would be formula? There's a word that, you know, we could come up with that fits into that. What is it that they're actually doing or executing?
Yeah. And I think that's the part, as you're getting me thinking and getting me like doing this, I haven't got it down, but I think it can become a set program that we teach or that I teach on how to do it. So, you know, I think there's stages of the execution of a plan. And I don't know what that necessarily needs to be called or looked at, but I think it's, you know, what's the plan? How do you properly execute it? Then how do you measure and manage it to get the outcome you're looking for?
Yeah, exactly. So if that's the hypothesis that that plan or these steps need to be executed in order to get that end result, then ultimately what lies in there is your product, what you teach people, what you start branding yourself as. So how products and online offerings work is that when you go on social media and you're talking about, you know, you see people doing lives, you see people doing social media posts, what is on that end of things is why you need to start changing your thinking. Obviously, it aligns with what we've talked about, getting the best out of your people, goal setting, why you need to develop competencies. It's all those why questions and what you need to do. So what is missing here is how, but the how is sold in your course. So that is the difference on what is, you know, behind the Komodo in your paid product versus what is on the front line of what you're actually talking to the entrepreneurs about. And the more practiced that, you know, we become at sharing that message and, you know, delivering, you know, the Facebook Live aspect, the more you'll start to see the patterns in the types of businesses that are interested. And I would say with all the COVID stuff going, how this is more important than ever is really how people are doing this from an online perspective, right? How do you actually manage and measure the work, ensuring that that is still happening when trust is at obviously a high point, people working from home. And obviously that's something I know in your experience, like you're very skilled at managing. I don't know, how many clubs have you had at one time?
17.
What's the number there?
17
clubs. And then all the people underneath them. That's obviously a skill set that you have, is how to manage and measure the work from that large scope where you have a big team. And so I think that the development of a product and what you could be looking at here is all those key things that fit into your formula of how you've done this with success, whether it be whatever you think really falls into that. Maybe it's like daily update calls, or you're reporting up, you're sending in these metrics, or whatever you feel are those really key things. That is the system that ultimately you're building. Yeah. And then going to teach these leaders that are all of a sudden in a position where they're having to manage, however many 300 different associates or employees with, let's just say 15 leaders, where they've never done that before. They've had to do that at a distance. So ultimately, I think now that you're clear on this stuff, and this is where you feel like you can offer a ton of value, obviously all of your experience leads into this things, you can sort of start in two ways, right? You're going to now in your brain is sort of going to be that formula for, okay, what actually falls into this step-by-step process of how I can actually help businesses implement this stuff. And then on the other side, it's about making a list of all the little mini sort of trainings you can do on why you need to do it this way and what you actually need to do. So an example of this would be, you could do a training on teaching like the 1-minute meeting. This is what you need to do, but ultimately how that's actually run, it would be in your paid course or paid formula. So you can teach them why a 1-minute meeting is really effective with your team and what you need to do. You need to go over things that went well, areas of improvement. It's an overview, but ultimately if they want the full cow and not just pieces of the story, then they get that in your paid option. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. So that's, I guess, when we go back to your perfect day, that's the add value piece. Everything that you do from this point in building upon this idea of a business is there's sort of, in a way, like 3 buckets to think about. The first bucket is the content creation. So it's like having this ongoing list of topics that you're, oh man, that'd be so cool to do a little talk on ABC players, or anything that you remember that you're like, leaders need to know about this. And that is one thing that, is in your weekly schedule, or when you think of it, you're adding to keep a list, because that's going to keep every topic that you talk about, not only fresh with ideas, but that's ultimately how people get to know who you are, is they hear you talk about something and therefore they become interested. The second piece is there's this research piece that happens about what those business owners are actually saying. So, you know how in the fitness industry, someone would come to you and be like, oh, I just want to tone up in my rib cage area so that my blood looks thinner. And, ultimately you're thinking, okay, cool. So you want to lose weight. Okay, got it. Our translation of that different. So ultimately, the second piece is the research piece of finding the language that your ideal customers or ideal businesses are already using. So if you're looking on LinkedIn, or usually Facebook groups have a lot of stuff, but another really good one is Amazon. If you go and look at Amazon book reviews, and let's say you were to pick a book about driving sales performance or something like that, when you go to look at the book reviews, there are going to be a bunch of business owners that talk about what they're struggling with and how the book helped them. Or they'll be like, straight up, this was missing from the book. I still don't know how to do this. And that's the language you're looking for, because then it instantly builds rapport with people when you start utilizing that language in what you're putting out there about what you're teaching. And then the third piece of this is starting to think about how that programming or offering you're putting together comes together. So what are the pieces involved in getting your ideal client from your before to your after? What do they need to know how to do? And then thinking about ways of delivery of this, because obviously there's courses, there's, live training via Zoom, that sort of stuff. And just thinking about what is that offer that you're going to put out there, because this could be a workshop online. There's so many different things that you can do just depending on what your audience, wants.
Mm-hmm.
I forget who said this to me the other day. It might have been Rick Mulready, where he said, wherever there's problems, there's money. So it's just about being on the
I heard you say that on your video that I watched today.
Oh, did you? Yeah. It's so true though, right? Where people are struggling, they want to find a solution. So it's just aligning yourself that your offer hits those right pain points where someone is really struggling. And sometimes I think people get discouraged because they are putting out their offer. It's not that the offer is not valuable. It's that they're not wording it the right way that their ideal customer thinks about it. So, it's that example of having, a nutritionist having like a hormone balancing meal plan. And yet the person on the other side is not thinking their hormones need to be balanced. They're like, I need to lose weight. I just can't. There's something holding me back. It's making that connection between.
What's the real root problem?
Yeah.
Like, what's the root problem? And then how do you fix that? Because the same thing as we say, well, I want this or I want that. And then the byproduct of it, like, then that I have to sell you on that sometimes, right? Because you're not thinking about the fact that if you do this, you're actually going to feel this way, or you're going to get this result. If you help me achieve it, it's not my number one goal. If my number one goal is this, help me solve that. And then if the byproducts are these other great things, then that's just going to make it a better situation. And those are the things we know really well, that what does the person really, really want to achieve? That's that true why.
Yeah.
Why? What's the emotion behind it? And any goal, not even just a physical fitness goal. It's like, why does somebody want to be successful in business? And it may not be, like, it could be money because they've got a family to take care of, an extended family overseas somewhere that they have to take care of. Like, and I used to always get mad when people be like, so Ash, do you want to lose these 20 pounds so you look good in a bathing suit on the beach? Like, it just hated that we would jump to that when it's like, you don't know me well enough to assume that that's what I want.
Yeah.
What would you suggest, these 3 things that you were talking about, the buckets, I'm doing some research and then writing some content. Would you say the best method would probably be just to write, like just keep writing, and then start to see what actually fits in to the vision? And then I guess I've got to come up with, what is it called? Like, what is it that I'm doing? But it's like, I guess still just maybe not having the name of it, but distilling it down to exactly what I want.
Yeah, like if you were going to create an 8 module or whatever, just get the skeleton down. You can figure out the rest after. It's having that framework.
I've got stuff to do. Thank you for your time. Very much appreciated.
So now that you've had an intimate bird's eye view of how I would coach somebody on finding their ideal customer and what that really looks like to do a deep dive into the before and after, now it's your turn. So what you're going to do with this episode and how to take some actionable steps is you're going to ask yourself those same questions I asked Nicole. You're going to start with, what does your ideal day look like, to find clues about what you want to be talking about on social media and what you want to be teaching people. You're then going to dive into the values of the people that you actually want to work with. Maybe you're someone that hates time vampires. That's perfectly fine. You just want to make sure you've identified that so that it's easy to call out those people you are looking for. You're then going to jump into the after of what their life looks like when they start doing the things that you're telling them to do. And then you can back it up to the before. What's happening in their life day to day when they aren't doing the things that you know they need to do to be successful. And one of the best places I mentioned to find some of this research about what your ideal customers are actually saying is on Amazon, looking through those book reviews. So I hope you enjoyed this episode today. I know it was super different than a lot of the episodes that I've done before, but I have heard from tons of my students, they say that just being on that other side and watching how I work is really helpful in them pulling the pieces together of not only their story, but how their story needs to connect on social media and what they should actually be talking about. So if you really loved this episode and being sort of on the other side of listening to the questions I would ask and how I dig in to ideal customers, you aren't going to want to miss this upcoming Ideal Customer Workshop. It's happening on April 28th at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it's a special workshop I'm actually putting on for my Social Selling Mastery members. But you have the opportunity to jump in by getting a ticket and making sure that you show up ready to learn and ready to dive in. Guys, this is the most common reason why you aren't getting engagement and people aren't responding to your posts. You haven't done the work to really, truly understand who your ideal customer is on a holistic level, not just a mom with kids. That isn't going to cut it here. So make sure that you register by going to ashleyshaw.ca/workshop. That's ashleyshaw.ca/workshop. And we'll see you next week on the next episode of Social Selling Simplified.